Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 3 and the final day of the Canadian Avalanche Association's 2020 Case Studies and Research Presentations online. The last event of our case study sessions, but don't worry, we still have the annual general meeting tomorrow. I am Joe Obad, the CAA's Executive Director. You'll notice that we have a presentation queued up already because we had some technical difficulties and we finally got it right, and we don't want to lose it. So in lieu of messing that up, we will leave the presentation up and we'll walk through the notes today. The last few days, we've witnessed an incredible set of presentations. Feedback from many of you has been that the presenters are doing an amazing job, and we're really excited to hear and see the presentations we have on the docket today. Just a quick note of facts: we have 417 CAA members registered for the spring conference, which is easily double what we usually have. We have 144 non-members who've also chosen to attend, many from all over the world, as you will have noticed the last few days. Of course, we like doing this in person, but I think what we've learned the last few days is that there's a huge appetite for these sorts of occasions, and we at the CAA are certainly trying to learn that lesson, and we hope the other agencies and organizations on the call have learned something from the quality of presentations and dialogue that we've been able to have. So before we get to the first presentation today, I'd like to thank our partners. We won't be putting up the partner slides because of some of the technical challenges we have, as I mentioned, but I do want to mention them for sure. Our year-round partners at the CAA who help us make events like this possible are our principal partner, Mammut, our premier partner, CIL Explosives, our select partner, Arc'teryx, and our foundation partners, BCA, Reco, the North Face, and Patagonia. Our industry training program is supported by a wide range of partners and collaborators who help us with financial support, avalanche safety equipment, venues, expertise, and more. Their generous support is vital to maintaining the high standards, industry relevance, and up-to-date information and best practices that our courses are known for. So thank you very much to all of our partners and collaborators. Lastly, for CAA members who plan to attend the general meeting, I've said it before and I'll say it again, please read the advanced reading materials that were emailed to you on Monday morning. They are essential and they will stand in place of the long PowerPoint presentations that we usually give, but there's lots of information there that will help our dialogue. So please do your advanced reading. It looks long, but you'll get through it quickly, trust me. Brent will walk us through some of the features of GoToWebinar shortly, but please remember for all those attending the AGM that you go through the two-step process to ensure that you have the link for Thursday, and make sure that you have a GoToWebinar style link confirmation that allows you to access GoToWebinar for the annual general meeting. For voting members, please remember that you must be logged in with your individual membership, either professional or active, if you wish to vote. If you log in as association or other, you will not be able to vote. Lastly, again today we'll be giving presenters the 2-minute warning to ensure that they are able to wrap up their presentation in a timely way for the next presenter. Brent, I think you were going to go through some housekeeping notes.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the case studies and research presentations. Today, as a default, all your mics are muted. And if for some reason you get unmuted, let's try and have some housekeeping there to keep your mics muted so we're not interrupting the presenters. At the end of each presentation, there's going to be a question and comment period. At that point, you can use the raise hand button, which is just a little icon on your control panel. It's got a little arrow on it. You just click on it, that'll pop up. When that's selected, I will unmute you, say your name, and then you can then start your question after that. Just please start with your full name, maybe where you're from if it's interesting, and ask your question at that. Some folks out there can only phone in to connect to these meetings today. Unfortunately, the only thing you'll be able to do is listen to the audio. You will not have the ability to ask questions. Unfortunately, that's not a feature with this platform. And just one note, folks, we will have this available after the fact online at one stage, which we'll be sending out communications following the AGM and stuff later in the week or early next week. So everybody grab a cup of coffee and enjoy the show.
Great, thank you, Brent. So our first presenter today, who you see maybe to my left, maybe to my right, depending on your screen, is Mike Innis. Mike is a physician with a 30-year career in a variety of practices: emergency, rural medicine, remote practice. He's a CAA active member and a longtime team leader in the Nelson SAR team. He holds certification with the International Commission for Alpine Rescue and the Canadian Society for Mountain Medicine. He helps out as a physician and guide with Mike Wigley helicopter skiing, as well as being the medical director for Retallick skiing. And Mike is going to talk to us today about the AVSORT II triage tool, and I think it's better to let Mike talk about that more. So Mike, over to you.
Morning, everybody. Yeah, thanks for that introduction. And yeah, a few tense tech moments here at the beginning, but hopefully everything's going to work well for us. So first off, thanks to the Canadian Avalanche Association for allowing me to give this talk. And the title of my talk, as you see there, is AVSORT II, Triage Algorithm for Avalanche Rescue. Just a bit of housekeeping off the top as well. I am sort of affiliated with some of these organizations and operations, but I'm just speaking today on behalf of myself. And just some acknowledgements to start off. I just initially wanted to thank some of the guiding crews that have sort of helped me with this project, the crew at Wigley's and Retallick, Baldface and Selkirk Snowcat. I also want to acknowledge the work of three of my colleagues who sort of initiated this sort of concept, Boyd, Bogle, and McLaughlin, who first presented or published this concept, and especially to Kyle McLaughlin, who some of you may know works with Parks and CMH, who helped me with this project quite a bit. So the goals of the short talk this morning, just initially just review some triage concepts for us all, just to remind ourselves. I want to introduce AVSORT II as a tool and just sort of go over some of the highlights, which will help us review some of the triage concepts in Avalanche Rescue. Just to sort of remind ourselves, the definition of triage is basically to sort. The concept is we want to do the most good for the most people in the face of limited resources. And those limited resources, as you all know, in Avalanche Rescue can be such things as personnel, equipment, weather windows, light, daylight, and such like that. Generally, the classic triage system and designation is that of a medical triage. And as you're all probably familiar with, sort of the classic color-coded sort of international schematic with green, yellow, red, and black. I do realize that some organizations and operations have their own triage system. Obviously, it's most important to know your own organization's system, but I like the sort of the international coding where we all sort of speak the same language and can interact. And uniquely, somewhat uniquely in pre-hospital care, and specifically in avalanche response, there's the individual subject medical triage, but there's also the concept, which is probably even more important, of tactical triage. These are the decisions we make during the rescue response in a tactical manner. And so avalanche triage is basically both the classic medical triage in a multi-casualty incident, plus those tactical triage concepts and decisions. And I do want to emphasize that triage is a dynamic process. So especially in a prolonged rescue, you will have to reassess things during different phases of the rescue, because you've initially triaged a person perhaps as a yellow, but maybe as time is going on, that triage designation is changing. So this is the original sort of AVSORT algorithm published in 2010 in the Wilderness Emergency Medicine Journal by Boyd, Bogle, and McLaughlin. And it's something that I noticed at that time and sort of have used over the years as a concept in multi-casualty avalanche response. And so that was back in 2010. And so why AVSORT II? Well, there have been quite a few updated standards since 2010, specifically within ICAR, the severe hypothermia protocol as it relates to avalanche rescue. There has been a lot of sort of pre-hospital advanced life support updated standards since 2010. The original AVSORT didn't have tactical triage decision points within it, and as we generally know, there are some tactical triage important concepts now in sort of modern avalanche response and rescue, including things like duration of burial and depth of burial. I wanted to bring it into the Canadian context as opposed to a European sort of rescue context where that golden hour of rescue often is accomplished in places like the Alps with their availability of rescue teams and advanced trauma centers close by. As you all know, the unique geography of Canada makes the avalanche rescue somewhat challenging and different. And I wanted to sort of make it practical. Over the years, I've found the use of laminated field cards helpful, especially at times of cognitive overload in the field, which an avalanche rescue can be. We wanted to make AVSORT II practical, and I'll sort of show that a little later. So this is AVSORT II. At first blush, it looks like a bunch of lines and boxes and arrows, but I think if you spend some time with it, it does make sense. I will make this available by PDF, so it's something that you'll be able to spend some time with if you're interested. Just sort of going over it in general, the schematic of it. On the left-hand side, you'll see the boxes, the white boxes, and those are the subject assessment points and decision points that lead on the right-hand side to the color-coded triage designations of the subjects. Just sort of schematically in general, the top left 4 boxes or so are sort of tactical triage points as you work your way down practically through the rescue scenario. The middle grouping there of boxes under the subject assessment are the initial assessment of ABCs, and that cluster of boxes just to the right are the folks with absent vital signs who you're deciding to embark on CPR or not. And you can see how the burial time designates your triage flow to the right. And then below that, as you're working away from your primary survey through your secondary survey, are the further triage designations to the right of the yellow and red. So that's just the first sort of blush at it. And again, this is will be available by PDF, so you can sort of study it and have a look at it after. Just want to go over some highlights through looking at some of the triage designations, and it brings up some interesting points on triage and perhaps how things have changed over the years. But I first wanted to chat a little bit about a group of folks that are triaged as provisional black tactically off the top as you're starting your rescue. And these are the folks that are triaged based on burial depth. And I think it's pretty well accepted and standardized through ICAR that deep burials are those defined as greater than 2 meters. And so that's perhaps your first decision point about whether or not tactically what to do next. If there's multiple full burials remaining, then generally the idea is pass over the 2-meter burials based on survival statistics. And similarly, there's a group of folks that are buried less than 2 meters who you've extricated. You've performed basic airway opening procedures, a couple of rescue breaths with no response. and yet there's still multiple full burials. Generally, it's accepted that these folks, you place them in recovery position and you move on to the next full burial. And the bigger concept is that there's still people in the pool drowning and you have to get them out. So you're moving on tactically. I wanted to briefly chat about the green folks just because it highlights a concept of in triage we call reverse triage. So occasionally it may be, you may find that being able to quickly assist someone who's clearly a green may be able to help with the rest of the rescue. So this is a reverse triage where a less injured subject is assessed first. And that's a tactical decision point. It's important to be able to recognize the unfortunate folks that are deceased so that time is not spent unnecessarily. So these are the folks that have an obvious lethal injury. These are the folks that have no vital signs in a non-burial situation, which you're assuming that's a traumatic arrest, and unfortunately that's an end result of an uncorrectable problem in the field. So these folks are designated as black. Any burial greater than 35 minutes with a fully obstructed airway, depending on your resources. If that's the only subject you have, you'll spend time there. But if your resources are quite limited, you'll triage them as black. Of course, if your resources are unavailable or it's unsafe to perform CPR, that person unfortunately is black. And anybody with a short burial, which is less than 35 minutes, and no response to CPR 30 minutes long is also designated as black. Moving on to spend a little bit of time on a bit more of a complicated scenario, which is a topic in itself, is the severe hypothermia designations in Avalanche Rescue. In Europe, they spend quite a bit of resources and time on these folks who are extricated with no vital signs, prolonged burial, which is greater than 60 minutes. That's new. It used to be 35 minutes, but now a prolonged burial is defined as greater than 60 minutes. And these folks, if they have an unobstructed airway, so vital signs absent, prolonged burial, 60 minutes or longer with an unobstructed airway. And do note that if these folks are found with an air pocket present at extrication, that's a more favorable outcome. But these folks, they spend a lot of time in Europe following this pathway in the protocol. I think in Canada, this is where the Canadian context comes into play. Based on a challenging survival chain, all the stars would have to align dramatically for these folks because it's very resource heavy. Because by definition, there's no vital signs, so you're performing CPR continuously until they reach an advanced rewarming center with cardiac bypass or ECMO. So you can see where all the stars in Canada would have to align dramatically. And within the AVSORT II protocol, you'll see to have that Canadian context, the pathway for severe hypothermia is sort of with an asterisk, and I'll go over that shortly because what I've done is on the back of the protocol of the AVSORT algorithm is the protocol for severe hypothermia. So really, and in my experience, it's not a pathway that's followed often in Canada, to date, if ever, because of our lack of quick rescue and resources. So that's there on the back of that AVSORT II algorithm for resource. So just for the last few minutes here, just going over the red designated subjects. These are the life and limb threatening injury folks. These are the folks that have perhaps responded to CPR with return of vital signs, or they have altered level of consciousness, as you see on the algorithm, or signs of shock. And these are your red folks being transported to the nearest trauma center. And you see the word trends there because trends are very important. So a stable red over, say, the half hour of on scene at the rescue site is different than a red that's trending poorly. So it's sort of like a subgroup within your triage. And that's, as a rescue site leader, I like to know the trends. And quickly, just some of the yellow triage designations. These are the extremity injuries, sprains, strains, contusions, concussions. Don't forget psychological trauma needs to be triaged. And just to note, on scene, in the cold, how easy it is for a triage designation to deteriorate to the next level because of hypothermia. It's quite common for yellow subjects who are being treated like that on scene to slip towards red because of the onset of hypothermia. So just to show you this, the practical aspect of this, it is sort of a laminated field card. I found it helpful to produce two types, one a sort of 8x11 that can be in your rescue cache for the site leader, and then also perhaps if you find field cards helpful in your field book, a smaller version that can be for personal use. And sort of thinking of the future, I do consider this an open source type project, so I appreciate feedback, and it's a dynamic project that will change as protocols change and updated. I wonder if it is useful as a tool for some organizations in avalanche response. I mean, the most important thing is that you have a format and follow it. And then it has been accepted for presentation at the upcoming ISMM World Congress for some validation. So I appreciate your time this morning. My email is there. Happy to receive comments and questions. And again, the PDF of the card, both front and back, can be made available for anybody who wants it.
Great. Well, thank you, Mike. That was very valuable presentation. We have a lot of search and rescue folks on the line, and I see right away the questioners have lit up. So Brent, do you want to hand us over to our first questioner?
I see no hands up from the floor. If you see one, maybe.
Yeah, I see. I believe Jeff Boyd was our first.
Sorry, my apologies. I seem to be having a poor sort on my end today.
I will unmute Jeff, no problem.
Thank you.
Jeff, can you hear us?
Yeah, hi Joe. Hi Mike. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're coming through great.
Great, Mike. Fantastic. You know, it's wonderful to see somebody pick up this concept and try continuing to merge disaster management with medical management in the avalanche scenario. And you know, just a little bit of history. Kyle and I were mulling over the 2003 Connaught Creek incident, where there were two avalanche professionals sitting on their packs that watched the avalanche come off Cheops, come down and hit a group of 17 in the trough below. Those two avalanche professionals did an incredible job. You're probably aware of it, but maybe not everybody is. That as they skied very quickly down to the avalanche scene, they yelled out the concepts of tactical triage. And by doing that, they found there were 15 people unaccounted for. 2 of them are only partially buried. They actually contributed vastly to the survival of, I think it worked out to be about 8 of the remaining buried students and teachers. That incident was instrumental in making us think, well, we have to mix these things. There's no sense just taking the European medical resuscitation algorithm and applying it, because conditions can be very different. In Europe, they have a problem. They have to triage their resources. They have too many helicopters, too many doctors. They have to tell people to go away. So it's a different scenario. And of course, to put it into perspective, that was the birth of the AITS, the terrain evaluation system that we've used ever since. And it's interesting to see that that's being updated as well. But anyway, it's wonderful to see your update. I agree entirely. I think it's incredible. Of course, a rescue boss on scene is going to be also thinking about trees and cliffs and creeks and crevasses and all of those other things, but you can never write all of that into an algorithm. So congratulations. If you look at the studies, the series, especially the Innsbruck series, the people that survived, that had severe hypothermia and cardiac arrest that survived to hospital discharge, almost all of them had witnessed arrests. And we've actually had witnessed arrests in Banff National Park that have gone to bypass, gone to ECLS, and have actually survived. It's a witnessed arrest is a big plus. Maybe that should be in there somewhere. And additionally, of course, you would probably pass an esophageal probe and get a core temperature, and that would make the decision a lot easier too. Anyway, in finishing, fantastic work, and keep on with it. Hope you don't need to use it in your daily operations.
Thanks, Jeff.
Brent, I think we have some more questioners.
Yes, we have a few questions from the floor. Next up is Aaron Beardmore.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. I'm a rescuer with Banff National Park, and in my experience, the reliability of burial time has somewhat been in question. And I find that after the fact, I think these times are vastly under or overestimated. Do you have any suggestions for that? And I do speak in the context where the rescue team comes in after the fact, after the avalanche has occurred, with a group of recreationalists.
Yeah, Aaron, I do agree with that, and it may or may not be information you have, and it's just part of the puzzle, isn't it? When we decide on our tactical decisions, occasionally we will know exactly the sort of the time frame, but what do you do if the burial time is unknown? If you have the resources, you would assume it's a short burial, at least in my opinion. And again, the caveat is, do you have the resources? And focus as if it was a short burial and follow that arm of the algorithm. So it is just one piece of the puzzle, and amongst many others. But yeah, you're right. I don't have a brilliant answer for you there, but it's just incorporating that into the bigger picture. And if you see on the algorithm, if you don't know the time frame of the burial, again, if you have the resources, you assume that it's short and follow along that way. I don't know if that answered your question, but yeah, that's in my experience. That's a challenging piece of the information puzzle.
Great, yeah, thanks, Mike. It sounds like you just do the best with what you have.
Yeah.
Great,
All right,
thanks for that question.
For one more question from Dave Healy.
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Good, thanks.
Good. Just two-part question. First of all, have you published this yet, or is it still in pre-press and all that?
So it's yeah, no, it's still in sort of pre-press. It hasn't been published. It will be presented. We're next month actually. We were supposed to be in Switzerland presenting it, but that's been delayed, of course.
Beautiful. Okay, wait. The second thing is for us to present this to managers and people that need more, I guess, convincing to adopt this. Can you, if I send you an email, can you give us a list of studies that you use to develop this?
Yeah, absolutely. I can do that, and I have sort of produced cards and handed it out to various guiding groups during guides training, and I do want this to be open concept. So I just want this to be out there, and it's gone through many revisions, and as you hear, Jeff has some advice as well, and so I do want it to be open concept and not proprietorship. So the more it's out there, the better.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you very much. This is great work. Really appreciate it.
Brent, I think we are done with our questions. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Awesome. Well, Mike, I think you've given the community of rescuers and medical practitioners a lot to think about, and we really thank you for your presentation today.
Thank you.